Hey, it's Coach Taylor from SmarterTeamTraining.com. I've actually had an opportunity to reach out to several supplement companies about getting people on the show, and I reached out to a gentleman named Mark Glazier from NutraBio, and I'll be honest with you. This guy's a big league guy. He sent me an email back instantly. He had a couple other people from his team communicate with me, even to the point of sending me samples and giving me nutrition information and write up some different things as far as research goes. And I'll be transparent with everybody. I don't have a real big supplement background, so I know enough probably to get myself in trouble. But when it comes to my clients and athletes asking questions about this topic in the world of strength and conditioning, I'm very, very comfortable and I guess confident enough to just refer them to people who know much more than I do in the supplement world, the nutrition world. And so to have somebody like Mark as a CEO of a completely unique supplement company, to be able to get on the phone and answer questions for not only myself, but people in the field that are just curious about what's going into their body or into their products that will eventually go into their body, says a lot about him. And Mark, man, it's an honor to have you on the show, and it's been great to connect with you.
Hey, Robert, thanks for having me. I appreciate giving us the time to speak to some of your listeners. The concept of nutritional supplement and supplementation is very important. I think it's important that people understand how to read labels, and if they're putting something in their body, they're not just putting paint on a wall. They're actually using something that can change their life and affect their body, and they should know exactly what it is and how to use it, and be educated on it. And I think one of the issues with the nutritional industry these days is people don't know what's in a product, don't know how to read a label, they don't have that education. And if they do, they can make better informed choices about what to put in their bodies.
Mark, before we get started here, and I know I have a bunch of questions to ask, and hopefully I'm sure this 30 minutes is going to go by very quickly. My first question is a little bit of a personal nature. I mean, where did your passion come for this field? How did you get started in this field? And do me a favor and tell me a little bit about the unique things you have going on at NutraBio.
Well, I've been in the fitness and nutrition for my entire life. I started in martial arts when I was about 6 years old. I got my first set of barbells, that we called them back then, or weights, when I was 12 years old. Now I'm 53 years old, and I don't think a day's gone by in all of those years that I haven't either been on a mat training or in a gym training or doing something physically fit or something having to do with nutrition. It's my love, it's my passion, it's what I spend all day, every day doing. The first part of my life is in martial arts, and my whole idea was, how can I help people the best I can? How can I help people reach their true potential physically and emotionally and mentally? And I did that through teaching martial arts, and I built one of the larger organizations in the United States. And from doing that, I ended up getting heavily into nutrition. And back in those days, I started making my own nutritional supplements in the basement for myself, mixing and matching amino acids and proteins. And eventually I started putting those in little baggies and giving them to my athletes and my fighters. And that's really what started me into the nutrition business. After a while, I realized that there was a big need for it, that proper nutrition and learning how to eat properly, macronutrients as well, not just micronutrients and supplementation, has a profound effect on a person's well-being, and not just their physical body, but how they feel, how they think, their energy levels, everything as far as their performance. So I started to really heavily get into it. And that's how NutraBio started. It was kind of an offshoot of martial arts training and my need to get better physical performance out of my fighters back in the late 80s and early 90s.
When I start questioning anything in the supplement world, and I don't care if it goes from vitamins to the protein powders, et cetera, one big thing that I guess I have a question about is how is the government monitoring what's going in the packages that are coming to me? Or how does each bottle have some type of consistency within the products? Walk me through this process. How does the government monitor or even establish the quality control within the supplement industry?
That's a tricky question to answer, but everything we see in the news every day, we're always seeing attacks on the dietary supplement business. We're seeing companies that get their products tested and they fail. We're seeing products that are contaminated. We're seeing athletes that fail their drug testing because of contaminated products. And the media and politicians are always blaming the industry and saying it's not regulated. It's a free-for-all. Companies can do what they want, but that's not true. Back in 1994, an act was passed called the DSHEA Act, and that allowed the FDA to create a set of laws for good manufacturing practices, and that was done back in 2007. So there's actually a set of rules and regulations that manufacturers must follow. It's called CFR 21, Part 111. It's part of the Code of Federal Regulation. And this Part 111 was actually adopted from pharmaceutical codes for manufacturing. And they're almost identical in many ways. In some areas, dietary supplement manufacturing is even stricter than pharmaceutical or drug manufacturing. The problem is not that there's no regulation. The problem is the FDA was given the regulation but was not giving any funding. So they don't back it up. They can't back it up. They don't have the manpower. So out of the thousands of manufacturers and brands that are out there, less than 10% have actually ever been audited under CFR 111. And the issue now is every time there's a complaint, politicians and media call for more and more regulation, which will not help. There's not really a single aspect in my manufacturing that is not regulated by the FDA at this point. And that goes from starting off with raw material purchasing and testing and proving and qualifying that raw material to make sure it's exactly what it is. That's regulated. In-process manufacturing and testing, contamination testing, final product testing. The regulation says that I have to test every single product to prove scientifically before I ship it out to a customer that it meets 100% label claim. So when you see a product out there fail and you see everybody asking for more regulation won't help. What we have to do is we have to get Congress to fund the FDA to put more money into CFR 111 and enforcing the laws and regulations that are out there. If those laws were enforced right now, every product on the market would meet label claim, would be uncontaminated, would not have any altered substances in there, any drugs in there, or anything else. The problem is enforcement, not regulation.
I don't want you to give any trade secrets or any NutraBio type secrets, if you wouldn't mind, for the next question. But if you could walk me again through this sometimes very questionable aspect of supplements. I mean, just people just have general questions in mind. I mean, how do you, as a CEO of a company, how do you regulate or standardize the production of your supplements? I mean, some people even question additives being put in there, the excipients. You and I even talked about a little bit, and hopefully get to this a little further, proprietary blends or even if they're hitting ingredients and stuff. I mean, walk me through that process just so I know that each canister is the same, or each pill or each powder pack or whatever it is, that they're always the same amount of ingredients. Can you walk me through that a little bit, please?
Yeah, definitely. It all comes back to kind of what I just mentioned, and that's the CFR 111 regulations. And those are what we call GMP, good manufacturing regulations, good manufacturing practices. And those laws and regulations are set out. And in our facility, NutraBio, we are an FDA registered and an FDA audited facility, certified as a GMP facility by the state of New Jersey. And what that means is we have a set of regulations, and right now those SOPs, standard operating procedures, are 300 plus procedures that show and dictate every single aspect of our manufacturing, from raw material selection to each step along the way, from blending uniformity to contamination to final product testing, every step of the way. And if those are adhered to, then the product is going to be the same, and it's going to meet the spec each and every time. And it's not a matter of just having regulations on paper. The FDA requires training of employees for each of those regulations, and they get so in-depth that we even have to prove the qualification of the trainer who's training the employee. So if you're following CGMP regulations, the C stands for Current Good Manufacturing Practices, if you're following those regulations, then your product will be what it says it's going to be. But there's a second part to that, because if you are making a good product and the manufacturing is perfect and the label meets the claim, it's uncontaminated, it's exactly what's supposed to be, it doesn't mean it's a good product. A perfect product, if it's a garbage product, it's just a perfect piece of garbage. And that's where this industry is really lacking in. And it's based on something called a proprietary blend. And a proprietary blend is when a product label, instead of telling you how much of each ingredient is in the label bulks a bunch of ingredients into a blend and just tells you how much of the blend there is. And it's a trick. It's a trick to fool people and consumers into thinking that there's ingredients in there in high dosage and dosages that are going to help you, but they're really not. Because the FDA requires me to list every single ingredient on my label. I have to list the dosage of those ingredients on my label. The loophole is if I use a proprietary blend, I put a bunch of ingredients together, I only have to list now the total blend and not the individual ingredients. So what a company will do is they'll take some very expensive ingredients, it'll put in the proprietary blend. The consumer will see those expensive ingredients, but they won't know how much of those ingredients are in there. And the government does not regulate how much is in there. So you can have a product where an ingredient where you need a gram, 1,000 milligrams, and the manufacturer will literally put 0.5 milligram or microgram dosage into there, and that's in its formulation. And the government is fine with that. It's in there. You're not stating how much is in there. The customer gets absolutely no benefit from that ingredient, but they think it's there. And that's a big, big part of this industry is fooling consumers, hyping them up on a label, talking about how good the ingredients are and talking about each of the ingredients and the power and the benefit you're going to get from those ingredients, but not putting them into that formula with any real dosage or real therapeutic dosage. In the industry, they call it window dressing the label, putting ingredients in small dosages and nobody gets any benefit, but the consumers think they are. It's also called fairy dusting, like sprinkling dust inside the container. And that's the biggest scam in the industry these days. It's that people do not know what they're getting. You're buying a product, you're buying a protein powder, it's a macronutrient, you want to build and repair muscle, you're putting 100% effort into your training every day, you expect your supplement company to do the same thing, to give you a supplement that's real and put 100% commitment into that supplement. But you look at protein powders these days, and they could be anywhere from 44% to 60, 70%. And the protein brands are using proprietary blends and mixing in garbage proteins, whey protein concentrates, 34% concentrated proteins. I know you're not going to know what this means, but they're garbage proteins filled with lactose, cholesterol. And then they'll put a smidgen, just a small amount of something called whey protein isolate, a very high-grade protein in there. And they'll bury all of this in a proprietary blend. And their advertising will talk all about the benefits of pure whey protein isolate, but there's none in there. It's all garbage proteins, and this is what the industry is all about. The protein powders today are not nearly as good as they were 10 years ago. This industry is more worried about taste and price than it is about benefit. When a company goes to manufacture a new product, the two questions they ask is, how much is it going to cost to manufacture, and how good is the taste? And that's how they make their product. And that should not be the first question. The first question should be, what is the benefit that we want to give the consumer? Is this protein powder, for example, just a protein powder? Is it a meal replacement? Is it supposed to give them energy? What is the purpose? And then let's make the best possible product we can to that benefit. After that, let's worry about flavoring it, make sure it tastes as good as we can. And after that, let's price it. But it's the opposite. And then all of these products go out to contract manufacturers who bid on it. And contract manufacturers are bidding against each other, so they're worried about how can they get the price down for the brand as low as possible. So they cut corners, and they add ingredients in the proprietary blends, and they do things like protein staking, which is a big scandal in the industry right now. So in the end, the consumer really never knows what they're getting with the way the labeling system is right now. So consumers, if any listeners are here, you have to demand that any product you buy, that manufacturer does not use proprietary blends on the label, that they list each and every single ingredient on the label, and most importantly, the exact dosage of every single ingredient should be on the label. If it's not on the label, if there's a proprietary blend on the label, do not buy it. Manufacturers will pretend that they use proprietary blends to protect their secret formulas. That's a bunch of bull. If they have to list the ingredient anyway, any lab can test to see what the formula is. I can spend a couple $100 to $1,000 and test any product in the industry and find out what that formula is. The real reason they use proprietary blends is not to protect formula from competitors. It's to hide their formula from the consumer so the consumer does not know how little of the active ingredient is actually going in there. Now, the good news about this whole thing, because I hate to just talk negative, is that it's changing. This last year especially, more and more companies are starting to get rid of proprietary blends. Every week I see another company popping out with real dosages listed on their products. And what's good about this is it forces different brands to compete against each other based on formulation. When everybody has a proprietary blend and they're hiding their ingredients, They don't have to compete against each other. They just hype up labels, they scam, they hire big-time athletes, and they just work off of that. But when the ingredients are listed and the formulation is on the label, it forces industry to innovate. It forces competitors to make a better product, not just to hype up a product, but to make it better than somebody else's. That's innovation, and that's what this industry needs.
As we're talking about this proprietary blend type scenario, I'm sure, or at least my head is actually going through this concept of how do you develop the right blend or ratio of ingredients. So if you don't mind, I'd like to pick a product here, and again, it doesn't have to be a trade secret or something that you guys are doing secretly. I'd just like to know, let's pick the extreme nitric stack. I mean, while creating a product like the extreme nitric stack, I mean, how did you go about deciding the right blend ratio of ingredients, and walk me through a little bit of that process of what becomes the best product for our consumers?
The interesting thing you said a couple times so far is not to give any trade secrets away, and you can't give the trade secrets away because they're right on the bottle. If you look at a proper label on a real product that does not use proprietary blends, the trade secrets are all on the label. If you look at the product you just mentioned, Extreme Nitric Stack, the formula is right on the label. The consumer can see exactly what they're getting in the product. So there are no trade secrets if you're doing it that way. The idea of how do we formulate a product like that? Well, there's a lot of ingredients out there that we're looking at. First thing we want to do is decide what we're trying to achieve in the product, because there's a lot of crossing between products. You have pre-workout products, you have intra-workout products, you have amino acid products, and you really have to define what you want to get from that product so you're not crossing from one to the other. In Extreme Nitric Stack, the idea was to give an overall muscle building and repair product. It's not necessarily a pre-workout. It's for somebody who wants to take a product twice a day, get benefits of pre, intra, and post. So it's kind of a generalized product. So you look at ingredients on there and you start doing the research. There is a lot of research out there, clinical research that you can look at, and you have to comb through the hype and the nonsense, research that was done on 3 rats in some strange country versus real legitimate research. That's a big part of it. You've got to do your own research. So we have a whole formulation team of amino acids, some formulation scientists, some doctors, and nutritionists that sit down and really work on these processes. But even after we comb through all the research and we put everything together, that's only the first step. Then we have to go through what we call qualitative study. Quantitative is looking at the numbers. Qualitative is, hey, let's give this to athletes. Let's put it out there. Let's see what's working. So before we throw something on the market, a pre-workout or something like Extreme Nitric Stack, that goes out to our team of athletes out there. And they test it, and they can get different dosages. There'll be blind testing to see who's getting, without them knowing exactly what's in it, so people can say what they're getting from it. And we can go through 4, 5, 10 different formulations before we get to a final product that works. So it's all about choosing a benefit, putting ingredients on that have research, then using the therapeutic dosage of those ingredients. Because like I said, with proprietary blends, if you don't use the therapeutic dosage, the consumer does not get any benefit. So it's a matter of getting the right dosage through studied ingredients, through quantitative and qualitative research, and then putting it on the market once you've proven that it's working.
When I'm doing my quote-unquote research on Google, obviously that's highly scientific, about some of these supplement companies, some people actually market or use the terms food grade versus pharmaceutical grade. I mean, can you do me a favor and just clarify a little bit? What is the difference between a food grade and pharmaceutical grade supplement?
Food grade is defined for different types of products. There's feed grade for animals, which you definitely don't want to take because they allow stuff in there that no human should be eating, and I wouldn't feed to my pets, so I would only give food grade products to my pets. Food grade is something that's suitable for human consumption. Pharmaceutical grade, unfortunately, has no defined meaning. So people use it, put it on their products, but there is no exact definition. So when you see that word pharmaceutical grade, you more want to go to the company and say, what does that mean to you? Because you can put the word pharmaceutical grade on a batch of protein that company A made in their bathtub, or you can put it on a company's brand that is a GMP FDA facility. It doesn't mean any difference. The FDA doesn't care. There's no legitimate meaning. To us, what pharmaceutical grade means is that it was manufactured to the standards of the FDA regulations of CFR 21 Part 111. It's not adulterated. It's not contaminated. The ingredients were tested in the beginning before they were ever used, quarantined and tested before release. The final product was fully tested from third-party testing to ensure that it meets 100% label claim, to ensure that it has no contamination in it. The product does not contain any ingredients not listed on the label, so there's full disclosure on a label. The product doesn't include any banned ingredients or any ingredients that are not allowed yet. So that's our definition of pharmaceutical grade. The general definition is all over there, so it's one of those terms that really has no meaning that you have to be really careful of and not really listen to.
Another word during my preparation for this interview and in this conversation with you is excipient, and I kept seeing and reading different questions about what that meant to different people. I mean, what is an excipient, and how can it affect a product or the body's response to a supplement, for that matter? And is this a common practice within the industry?
Yeah, an excipient is basically a non-nutritive substance. It's something that has no nutritional value, a chemical that's used alongside the active ingredients for some additional purpose. It's usually used to increase manufacturing efficiencies or something that doesn't benefit the consumer necessarily, but does benefit the manufacturer. Not all excipients, but excipients are like silica is used, and magnesium stearate. They're used as a lubricant to make sure the product glides through the machinery quicker, to make sure it doesn't stick together. But some of these ingredients that are chemicals that are added to these products do not benefit the consumer, and they could have negative effects on the consumer. Magnesium stearate, for example, compromises the immune system. Silica can cause essential vitamins to lose their bioavailability, like thiamine. And thiamine, if you're training and your thiamine levels go down because of too much silica intake, it leads to loss of muscle control. It can lead to excessive urination, to kidney problems. And there's dozens and dozens of these ingredients that are used as chemical excipients, from talc to titanium dioxide, all different types of things that are just not needed. When I started back in 1996, when we manufactured our first products, we had a goal to make the best product we could, not to compete against the consumer, but to make against a competitor, but to make the best product we could to benefit our consumer. And over the first few years, I did what everybody else did. I hired a contract manufacturer to make my products. And those years from 1996 to 2000 was a huge learning experience for me. I learned all of the scams of the industry, proprietary blends that I'm talking about now, the use of excipients that I'm talking about, fillers, additives in your products, protein spiking. And in 2002, I kind of got fed up with the whole thing. I realized that the products that I was selling to people who trusted me, my own students, my own athletes, and other consumers, they were just not what they were supposed to be. And the formulators that I worked with the contract manufacturers, played all these gimmicks and all these games, and my products were garbage. In 2000, we literally threw away our entire product line. We shut down the facility. We shut down. We threw away, I think back then it was a lot of money, about $250,000 in products. And started all over. So we were going out of business for about 6 months in between. And what happened was in 2001, 2002, when we reopened, we made a bunch of commitments to the consumer. And the first one was no proprietary blends. And I'm telling you this about my product, but these are the commitments you should expect from any company with any product that you buy, not just mine. And there are other companies that are doing this. And the first one is no proprietary blends. We talked about that. Full label disclosure. We guaranteed the consumer that we would list everything on those about every ingredient, and that every single ingredient would be in a full therapeutic dosage. But a big thing we did back then was to make a commitment to have absolutely no fillers or no excipients and no additives in our products. So every product that we made since has had absolutely no chemical additives. Now, there is one exception to that we changed about 4 years ago, because flavoring and sweetener is really considered an excipient. So that's the one caveat to that, is we actually never flavored anything until a few years ago. We consider that to be an additive, but our consumers forced us to do that. So now we do flavor stuff. So that's one of the excipients that you might add to it that has some benefit to the consumer to make something more palatable. But other than that, we made the commitment that we would not use any of these chemicals because they have problems with creating bioavailability issues, digestive issues, immune issues, all kind of negative effects.
You brought the concept of flavor, and I'll be honest with you, I've tried a bunch of supplements, and I actually enjoyed the flavor of your supplements, the ones that we were trying, for that matter. And that's not for the listeners, I'm not being paid to say that or anything like that. I actually enjoyed just processing and going through that trial and error of each one of them. So I did enjoy that, which leads me to a conversation about how much customer feedback does play in your product design? You talked about sending stuff out to your athletes and some of the other people within your system there to get feedback to help with the blends, etc. But even flavor and some of those other parts, even from the marketing aspect of it, I mean, how much does customer feedback play into the evolution of your business?
A lot, especially when it comes to flavor. Flavor is not about benefit to the consumer. For that, we want to look at studies, quantitative and qualitative. We want to see what it acts. But when it comes to flavoring, it's more about whether consumer is going to enjoy it. So when it comes to creating a flavor, we do a lot of testing with customers, sending out samples of multiple flavors, getting their feelings on it, because that's really something that just gets a person to actually drink it. It's not as important to us, the overall company. We're looking at benefit to the end user. What are they going to get from the product? But once we start flavoring it, we'll bring in a lot of people to do test runs on it.
You talked about your story in 2000, and you and I talked off the show here a little bit about how you guys evolved as a business and that process of evolving and just becoming and wanting more. If you want more, you got to become more. That type of concept, and going through the struggles in 2000 to 2001 and 2, and that commitment you made to consumers. If somebody was interested in pursuing anything, it could be moving from the professional and college ranks and trying to go into the private sector, or maybe they're in the private sector and they want to go a little bit of a different angle within our field, and maybe that's going from someone being in the trenches as a trainer and then evolving into a sports nutrition manufacturing company, for that matter. I mean, what kinds of motivational or inspirational messages would you have for those that are willing to chase their dreams?
There's an open market out there. I'm an advocate for change in this industry. I talk a lot about what we do with our brand, and it sounds like just pushing my brand or marketing myself, but it's not really the case. For the last 15 years since we made our change, I've been a huge advocate for the industry as a whole, for the industry to make changes by getting rid of proprietary blends, by getting rid of unneeded fillers and chemicals of excipients, full label disclosure on the product. And I don't do those as gimmicks. I didn't make those as gimmicks to set my product apart from somebody else's. I did that because that's what the consumer deserves. The consumer should know what they're getting. They should expect a safe product, a product that has benefit, not a hyped up product that doesn't do anything. So if you're somebody who's interested in this field, if you're taking supplements now and you're going to college for nutrition and you're interested in making some type of career out of going into supplementation, and you look at the thousands of brands that are out there, and you say, "Wow, this is too competitive. I shouldn't go out there." That's not correct. You can always make a better product. You can always innovate. This industry needs innovation. It needs people who are honest, people who, yes, it's a business, and yes, in the end, the business has to profit, and no business is going to stay there if they're losing money on their product. But it doesn't have to be all about the bottom line. Bean counters in the back office should not be formulating your products. The formulation should be based on results, and you have to build a company based on giving performance results to the person who's taking the product. And that's the way we always look at it. If we can do that, if our consumers can get benefit from the product, then we know we will grow. And if you're out there and you're looking to move into the industry, let me tell you right now, it's an open field. There's a lot of ways you can get into this industry and innovate and help people, whether they are athletes that are looking to be better, whether they are weekend warriors doing Spartan runs and riding bicycles on the weekend, or whether they're hanging at home that need more energy. There's a lot of ways you can get involved in the supplement industry, sports supplement and health supplement industry, that can really change people's lives if you're committed to that. If you're committed to just getting this to make a buck, the wrong industry to be in. There's enough of those people here already.
Well, Mark, I know you're a busy guy, and I appreciate the opportunity. I know we were on the phone a little bit yesterday trying to figure some things out with the show, and we've gone back and forth several times on email. And I've been reading everything you've been sending to me, to be very fair. The whole staff has, to be very honest. We've all been very intrigued with this entire process, and the fact that you're very, very open with just a random guy that shot you an email and said, "Hey, I got a question. Would you mind getting on a show and answering it for me?" I think that says a lot about who you are as a person, and also who you are as a brand, a company, and a product. So I appreciate the opportunity there to get you on the show here. If anybody has any questions about anything we discussed on the show here, and they want to reach out to you to find out more information about anything we discussed, I mean, the product line, reaching out to you, or finding out where you're going to be around the country. I know you guys do a bunch of different things. I mean, how could they find out more information about NutraBio and the bigger picture of the supplement industry that you guys are hopefully cornering, for that matter?
Appreciate that. This is on our website, which is NutraBio, NutraBio.com. They can call us at 888-688-6224, so they can reach us there, or to our internet. They can reach our email to our internet site. We're doing a lot of shows across the country. For the last 19 years that we've been in the business, we've sold direct to consumer only, and that's because the way we create the products and the pricing strategy, making a product with high dosages of active ingredients, it worked a little differently. And now what we're doing is we're also selecting some real select stores out there to carry our products, so you'll be able to go to our website and see that as well. And it's not a lot of stores, not all over the internet. We're just trying to find organizations that understand nutrition and understand some of the things that we're talking about here that can get the consumer to understand the difference between, a safe product, a real product. So you'll be able to find our products in more and more stores in the near future.
Well, again, Mark, man, I appreciate the opportunity to get a chance to know a little bit about you and the product line. I know you guys are based out in New Jersey. I go up there very, very often. I know even last year, one of the attendees at the conference that I host there in New Jersey actually invited me to come up early and go over to the facility. I knew nothing about you guys, but if the door is or the opportunity is made available again, I would like to take an advantage of it going into 2016 here and get a chance to meet you guys, shake your hand, and learn more about what you guys are doing, because I do think you guys are on the front end of this. From the notes that I've taken, again, the information you guys have sent, and just obviously just how open you are to just informing the consumer. I think education is a big part of this whole entire experience, and the consumer should know what's going in their body.
So we have a facility here that's, like I said, a GMP FDA facility where we manufacture all 370 products of ours. It's an open-door policy. You can come by any time, and we'll give you a full tour of the facility. You can see how we make these products. You can see the painstaking procedures that we go through to make sure they are exactly what we're promising you them. So it's open to you, and it's open to anybody else listening here at any time.
Well, I'm going to take you up on that offer, my man. I hope all's well. Have a great weekend, and I look forward to catching up soon, buddy.
Okay, thanks for having us. Talk to you soon.